So these voice-based user interfaces provide an intuitive and accessible way to interact, but older adults cannot really understand agents' functionalities, receiving only their outputs and the benefits that are provided. Also, another concern is that older adults may have speech patterns or accents that challenge automatic speech recognition. Regarding the current AI virtual assistant, they utilize the well-known LLMs that understand human text, generate responses, and are trained on a huge quantities of data. So advanced agents in several apps and services of specific healthcare domains and geriatric care. CERTA has developed a number of AI virtual assistants regarding specific healthcare domain. There is a wealth of evidence in chronic diseases such as diabetes, asthma, and so on, and AI educational virtual assistants that offer a number of benefits through web, mobile, for abnormal event detection. Also, in terms of the NZ smart home scenario, an AI virtual assistant is integrated, acting as a controlling platform of users' connected device ecosystems. So AI-powered assistants provide a number of benefits that are very clear, but also a number of challenges that we have to pay attention on, and more particularly on the security, the ethical perspectives, and the effective design that the developers should take care of. In addition, what is needed is specific well-designed frameworks for guiding the development of high-quality conversational agents, and also privacy compliance for multi-scenario personalized health assistance. Overall, AI-driven personal assistance and geriatric care is a very benefit healthcare area that can enhance accessibility and independence, facilitate daily activities, and support a number of impairments. So this is all from my side. Conclusions, if we have time, will be analyzed afterwards. So I would like now to give the floor to my colleague Ilias Kalamaras. He will provide a presentation about digital twins. Please, Ilias.
Thank you, Sofia. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Apologies, I have a problem with my computer, and I will present from Nikos' computer, so it will appear as Nikos. So let me share my screen. Okay, you can see my screen, right? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Ilias Kalamaras. I'm a colleague of Sofia and Nikos in CERT. I'm a postdoctoral research associate, and I have been working the past few years regarding artificial intelligence, data analytics, machine learning in general for applications including e-health. So the presentation I will do has the title Improving the Quality of Life Using Generative AI and Digital Twins. This is a large topic. I will only briefly touch upon these key areas to to give you an overall idea of the relative technologies. This is the outline of the presentation. We will start with a description of what is a digital twin and how we can use it in applications, and then how digital twins can be enhanced by using generative AI, and give you some examples from the literature. So to start with, this is the AI-generated definition of a digital twin, if you search for it. So it is a virtual dynamic model of a physical object or system or process that uses real-time data to mirror its real-world counterpart's behavior and condition. So the essence here is that we create a virtual representation of a physical object that could be a person, a piece of machinery, or anything. We have a model that describes this object, and importantly, we use real-time data to continuously update this virtual representation with up-to-date information about the actual real object. So we have actually a twin of this object. Why do we need digital twins? They act, as I said, as proxies of real entities. Having a proxy of real entity is important because we can perform some actions on the proxy instead of the real object, and gain some knowledge, some information, or make some experimentation with something that's not yet the real object before going to the real world. So we can use digital twins, for example, to predict the real entity's state in the future, to predict the hypothetical behavior of the real entity under different conditions. We can test, for example, different medicines or different environmental conditions and see how the entity reacts or would react in hypothetical scenarios. And see the effect of our actions on the digital twin before acting on the real entity. This provides for a cost-efficient solution because it allows us to perform actions on something that's not real before going to the real object. In healthcare, they can be used to build AI assistants that can take personalized decisions to improve the person's health and overall quality of life. So it is quite relevant with the topic of confidence of this webinar in general. Some examples of digital twins. Digital twins originally were developed for the industry to have twins of machinery, equipment, or of an overall factory, or even of the workers. But they have been used in health in the past few years. For example, to create digital twins of tissues and organs, such as the heart, or subsystems of a person, for example, the reproductive subsystem, or of a complete patient, capturing different aspects of their health, and even of facilities such as a hospital or home, etc. The main components of a digital twin. There are two main components. First, we have a model that describes the dynamics of the physical object. This model could be, for example, a set of a mathematical description, a set of differential equations, or it could be a machine learning model that has been trained using data that captures the dynamics of the system, how the system would evolve under different conditions. This is a general model, but importantly, we need some real-time data to fit this model to the particular characteristics of an individual. We have an individual, a specific individual, and we want the model to represent this individual, the digital twin of this particular individual, not a general model. So each individual will provide real-time information, and based on this information, we will fit the parameters of the model to describe this particular individual. While the model is the same, the structure of the model is the same, the characteristics differ between individuals. How can you use a digital twin? I have identified here two broad, let's say, categories of usage. One is as a platform for experimentation for a human user to experiment with the virtual entity, and another is as an environment for training artificial intelligence agents to act optimally in a given situation. So let's take this one by one. As a platform for experimentation, this is a schematic that describes this idea. We have a human user. I have the nomenclature here is from the health domain, but the ideas are quite general. So we have the human user here, the clinician, and here is the digital twin, which is being trained with data from a real person. Now, the clinician can use the digital twin, can interact with it to experiment. For example, they can provide a configuration, they can provide some, let's say, a medicine, or they can provide some parameters of the simulation. I want to see what will be the future of this patient in the following month, what will be their vital signs, etc. The digital twin performs the simulation using the data from the real person, and the simulation outcomes are provided to the clinician. They view them, for example, using some visual interface, using some natural language narrative from an LLM, and they can take decisions. For example, they can say, okay, I have seen what the results of this action are. I want to change now a bit the environment or change some parameters and see what will happen. And this is a loop that from which the clinician can gain information about the real person using the digital twin. After this experimentation, let's say, phase, they can move to the actual application of the knowledge gained. So, for example, the clinician can create an overall treatment plan for the particular person and apply it actually. So they review the output that they gain from the digital twin and apply it to the real person. This is the usage as a platform for experimentation, as a simulation platform. The other is to use it as an environment for training an AI agent. So instead of the person, of the human user performing this loop and gaining information, we have an AI agent in the person's place. The AI agent can perform some actions with digital twin, can get some rewards, some outputs of these actions, some KPIs, and using this, they can have this feedback loop to optimize a particular, to find the optimal solution to a particular problem that pertains to the actual person. I have used nomenclature from reinforcement learning actually here, the actions and the rewards in the overall loop, because it is quite relevant. So we can see the problem as a sequential decision-making problem. The digital twin is the environment on which the agent is trained. The agent performs actions on this environment. This affects the environment, that is the person or the entity. There are some rewards collected. This could be, for example, mortality or hospitalization or quality of life in general. So these are rewards, and the agent tries to find the optimal path, the optimal way to perform actions on this patient. And next, after this optimization procedure, the agent can hand over an optimal treatment plan or an optimal strategy to the clinician, who reviews this strategy and then decides if it can be applied to the real person. So this is the use as a platform for training. Now, let's move on to how generative AI can also help with digital twins. First, digital twins present some challenges. In order to train in order for the digital twin to pertain actually to a real person, we need a lot of data. So one problem is data scarcity. Real-time data are often not available, or they are scarce, or they may contain very large amount of missing values, etc. So this poses a problem. Then we have the model complexity. The actual model that describes the dynamics of the system could be quite complex or even not known. For example, to create a model for the whole patient or for even a subsystem or an organ of this patient is usually quite a complex problem. And while there might be some mathematical descriptions, they may not capture the whole aspects, or there may not even be known at all. And then there is the computational cost that comes with these complex models. So generative AI can be used to enhance digital twins with regard to these aspects. They can generate synthetic data sets that complement the real-world information that we have from the real entities. So in this sense, they tackle the data scarcity problem. And they can also be used to simulate dynamic phenomena. We can ask the generative AI model to generate a future progression of an event based on data that they have learned from historical data and from other domains. And they can provide actionable insights with LLM-based agents. So we can, after the the model has been created, we can ask in natural language about its outputs, so it can provide them in more natural language format. Just briefly, maybe this will be covered also in other presentations. Very briefly, generative AI is a type of artificial intelligence that creates new contents, like text, images, music, etc. And here it can also create time series for dynamic phenomena. I'm sure you are familiar with generative AI models. These are some examples from the literature: generative artificial adversarial networks, variational autoencoders, diffusion models, flow models. But lately, we are talking about mostly foundation models. LLMs are part of this, which are models that have been pre-trained using a large amount of data, and they can be used to generate new kinds of information. As I said, generative models is an overall pipeline of using digital twins. We have data acquisition, data modeling, and then we go to data analysis. So generative AI helps in these regards in data generation, solving the data scarcity problem, data modeling, and ultimately presentation of the analysis outcomes. And just to conclude, some examples from the literature. This is from a paper. You can see the reference down here, Building Digital Twins for Elderly Care. This is particularly for elderly care, which is relevant to this project. So here, the paper follows overall the approach presented earlier. We have the data collection, which is enhanced by Gen AI projects. The system collects vital signs, behavioral data, lifestyle data, etc. But these are enhanced using Gen AI. And then we have dynamic models covering different subsystems of the person, such as cardiovascular or respiratory. But again, these use Gen AI to create more comprehensive models. And finally, this approach is used for applications such as anomaly detection, prediction, or personalized recommendations, which again are enhanced by a natural language interface provided by Gen AI. And this is another example from this paper down here. That is where it is the digital twin of a hospital. Just to show you this potential, we have the digital twin of a hospital. Here, real-time data generation comes from sensors within the hospital or from procedures of the hospital, and this uses this feedback loop that I was showing earlier with reinforcement learning to find the optimal schedule, for example, for some examinations, in order to reduce waiting time for patients and things like that. Sorry for the quick overview, but this was my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, Ilias, for this very nice presentation. I unfortunately do not have time for questions. We will
maybe at the end. Okay.
Provide at the end the questions. Now I would like to welcome Professor Ioannis Katakis. He is a faculty member of the University of Nicosia, School of Sciences and Engineering Department of Computer Science. So the floor is yours, Professor Ioannis Katakis.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you very much. Let me just take a moment to share my screen. Let me know. You can see my screen, I guess, right? I can see it on the preview. All right. So is it still okay? Because I got a warning.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Please.
Thank you. So my name is Yannis Katakis, and I'm a professor at the Computer Science Department at the University of Nicosia. I'm also one of the two directors of the AI Lab, and at the same time, the academic coordinator of the MSc in Data Science. Now, I'm mentioning that because it's important for today, since some of the work that I'm going to present today is the result of the work that we have done in collaboration with our MSc students, and obviously we are very proud of that, so I have to mention this. Now, in this presentation, I'm going to give you, I'm going to present three things, actually. In the beginning, very briefly, something that Ilias also touched upon on his presentation was about how Gen AI is affecting health and the recent developments that we have seen in the last 3 or 4 years. Then I'm going to present some of our work, more focusing on virtual assistants and one we have done in a European project. And finally, I'm going to give you an overview of maybe 2 or 3 of our works in progress and things that we're working in this intersection of AI and health. So to begin, I'm going to give you just a few highlights of what is how AI is actually utilized today in health. So obviously in diagnosis, they help doctors to identify markers and reach more accurate diagnosis. We use AI to develop personalized treatments. We use AI more recently to speed up the drug discovery process. We use AI to predict disease outbreaks, as we have done recently with COVID-19. And obviously, the topic of today's seminar, virtual assistants and how we can use them to help patients, but also medical doctors, the caretakers. So it's a whole community that is surrounded around the patients that virtual assistants can help us with. Now, some examples, maybe you have seen them in the news recently. So MedPalm is one of them. These are systems built, as Elias mentioned, in foundation models that can help us, let's say, analyze scans, x-rays, and write reports. And they do that pretty accurately, sometimes even more accurately than the doctors themselves. And there are other systems like Meditron, built from EPFL and Yale, 2 universities. So this is another system, that a virtual assistant actually, that can help us answer medical questions. So doctors can use it. And this one in particular is focusing on alleviating bias, so making these very intelligent systems to be free of bias. And this is very, very important. Why do we have bias in the system? Unfortunately, this is something we cannot blame AI. This is something because because AI is trained on human-generated data, and unfortunately, there is bias in human-generated data. So there is a lot of effort, since we are discussing today also the issues with virtual assistants, there is a lot of effort to alleviate bias in these systems. And there are other more technical, let's say, models and systems that help care providers and researchers to discover new medicines, for example, or treatments for diseases, systems that we can ask them more specific and more technical questions, like what is the relationship between 2 chemical compounds, what are the relationships between a chemical compound and the protein, and things like that. And this obviously will help us speed up the drug discovery process. Other similar systems, like the previous one, is TX-GEMA, where we can assign the task of comparing 2 potential drugs for a specific disease, and the system will let us know which one is the first one that we should explore, which one has the more potential, and which can, by using a specific test process, will lead to a treatment for specific disease. Okay, so we can use them to speed up the drug discovery problem. And obviously, there are all the time we see, and that's a very, very good thing, a very good development, that we see new systems that can do diagnosis, for example, in X-rays, in breast cancer, or other diseases. And obviously, the most prominent example is the AlphaFold, where it was an AI system that was able to analyze and predict the protein structure or the structure of the proteins, and that, of course, also is very beneficial for accelerating drug design for diseases that were previously very difficult to target. Now, what we have done in a European project that's called Alameda, Alameda was about bridging the early diagnosis and treatment gaps of brain diseases. And we targeted, one of the partners was Sophia with CERF. We targeted 3 brain diseases: Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and also strokes. And we deal with patients of different age groups. Alameda was actually a technical solution, an AI solution, but also that was created in collaboration with patients, but also with the doctors. We had some clinics involved in the project. And the technology that we used was targeting one specific issue, mainly to enable the continuous monitoring of our patients. So before Alameda, the status of how people with brain diseases were treated was to go to the hospital or to the doctor's office, and the doctor will monitor their status, monitor the they will run some questionnaires, they will run some cognitive tests, and they will write the report. And then after that, 6 more months will pass by, and we'll do another test, and so on. So what we bring to the table was to enable the continuous monitoring of the patient. So through smart devices, through mobile applications, through virtual assistants, what we made possible was to enable the prediction by continuously monitoring the patient with their collaboration, of course, to be able to predict deterioration of the disease in the case of Parkinson's, to be able to predict relapses in the case of MS, and also to be able to provide personalized rehabilitation programs to stroke patients. So how did we manage that? We had, of course, established and utilized a lot of technical devices and applications. We had the mobile app, we had the dashboard. The mobile app included many apps like the chatbot that I'm going to present in the following slides. We had mood estimation apps, virtual keyboards, virtual supermarket tests. So these are cognitive skills tests that the patient can run on their computer or on the mobile phone, and they can, so we can monitor what doctors are measuring anyway, but in a more safe, in a more continuous way, and also in a less intrusive way. But at the same time, we utilize smart devices like smart bracelets, like sensorized insoles, like smart watches, smart belts, that they were monitoring how the patients were moving, and finally, smart matrices that they were monitoring how patients were sleeping, the quality of sleep, and other factors that are important for these brain diseases. So our chatbot named Xenon was a chatbot that it would look like ChatGPT or Facebook Messenger. So it will look like you're communicating to another human. It's chat-based, but it is effective, and it is multimodal. And I will explain what that means. The purpose of the chatbot was to collect information for patients in a non-intrusive way. So without the patients going to the hospital and have this questionnaire answered by the doctor, they can answer this questionnaire at the convenience of their own home. What made Xenon unique is the support of the multiple languages. We supported Italian, Romanian, English, and Greek. And that the fact that it combines 2 information sources for tracking sentiments, video and text. So how the patients are expressing themselves through their facial expressions, but also through what they type in the keyboard of their applications. And the sentiment analysis, the emotion analysis that we do will affect the flow of the conversation with the agent. So it is effective in the sense that it listens, and based on the sentiment that we measure automatically from the patients, we might let the conversation have a different flow. So this is how it looks like. You can see one of the typical questionnaires that the patients have to answer. This is done through, it's like a multiple choice questions. They can check a few boxes and then press send, or they can type their answers on the application or the chat box. Now, what is different and what is innovative in Xenon is the fact that we have this listening mode where the patient can send whatever message they like, expressing what they feel. And based on that extracted sentiment, we will allow the conversation to have a different flow. And this is how it looks in real time. Now we're using, as I said, we will be using also the face recording of the patients with their permission, of course, and we're letting them know that their face is recorded to identify correlations between their expressions of what their face and what they're typing. So we do whatever we can to make this feel as close to human conversation as possible, and that's why we let the chatbot, we instructed the chatbot to use paraphrases. So it will respond and it will express themselves with a different way every time you are having the conversation with them. This is just the technical architecture of the neural network that we are using to identify and measure the sentiment of the patient. We are also doing sentiment analysis, emotion analysis in collaboration with the Comparty, one of the partners of Alameda, in Alameda, Catalin, that we're doing the expression emotion analysis. And we're trying to see what is the relationship between the two modalities, let's say, in the analysis. Okay, when they agree, when they disagree. This is currently work in progress. The outcome, since I have to wrap this up, was that the users really liked the application. They confirmed the accessibility and user friendliness. The medical partners were also found it useful because they were able to monitor the patients and collect more data from there. The overall results of the Alameda project are in this slide. I'm going to just mention that the general conclusion was the benefits of monitoring the patients, and that it was possible, right? And then just to mention the things that we are working on right now in collaboration with the students. One of them is to identify adverse drug reactions from social media. So user communities, as you know, are online and discussing. Think of the application Reddit and mention the reaction that a drug was having. So this information is very useful not only for other users, but also for the people that are providing the medicine. And by building the system, we were able to identify adverse drug reactions that weren't even mentioned in the official documents of the drug. And the second application that I'm going to mention is multimodal neuroimaging. So imagine you're having a lot of different types of scans for our brains, structural imaging like MRI and DTI, functional images, fMRI and PET, and also electrophysiological like EEGs. So one of the students is working on how to combine these different scans, since they have complementary information to, again, understand how our brains work, but also understand and treat brain diseases in a more efficient way. So that was all for me. Thank you very much. I will be happy to answer any questions later on or offline. The email is on this slide.
Thank you very much for this excellent presentation, really. Personally, I apologize for the timing. You are in time, but we had a problem at the beginning of,
No problem. Yes.
all the presentations needed more time to be
That's fine.
completed.
That's fine.
So thank you again. Thank you very much. Now I welcome Franz Kolfork. And I am giving the floor. Professor Franz is from Tilburg School of Humanities and Digital Sciences, Department of Communication, Cognition and Technical Advisory member of WHO. It is an honor that we have Franz today with us. Thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I share my slides myself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if this is convenient,
oh, of course,
it would be nice.
Yes.
Thank you.
You can see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so welcome. Thank you indeed for the invitation. I really liked the previous presentation, so thank you for this. My role is mainly to tell you and try to explain to you how we can implement AI to better understand the effectiveness of digital tools. We are involved in around 25 Horizon and IHI projects, and in the majority of them, we use AI to analyze the data to be more sure about the effective implementation. And already saw that several of you are building very nice, interesting tools, digital platforms. And I think that this is fairly successful and very important as well, not only for preventative medication for patients with Alzheimer, but also for trying to prevent them from developing Alzheimer. As you know, AI is very promising. That's also why we established this new company in the Netherlands, in Utrecht, together with several professors working at university, using AI to implement this in data analytics and trying to train new students to use the European way of AI to analyze the data better. We also see that we have a lot of chronic diseases that are increasingly affecting many different youth, but also elderly. We also see that the healthcare is increasing. At the same time, we have more data than ever. We have very strong computer power. And I think that we are now facing an AI revolution, but we should also try to maneuver this AI revolution in such a way that we can implement it effectively, transparently, and also implementing it in an ethical way, that the European Commission will also start supporting this. We use actually large language models a lot. The developers of the AS Review Lab, I'm not sure if you are familiar with this, but I think that many people in this room, they have used it in some occasion. It's one of the most used tools worldwide, now with more than 1 million of participants using it for systematic literature review. It can be used for the first initial steps of a systematic literature review, where you can do an automatic analysis of the title and the abstract. And now in several IHI projects, we even also use the screenathon to start to analyze information in a faster way. And we also use this in different Horizon Europe projects. I will focus only on two here. So we have the LEAF project, which it was a large Horizon Europe project that just finished. It was actually a sequel of a previous project where they used large data sets from older at-risk people in 7 different countries. And we analyzed all the information from them, trying to see what kind of intervention, lifestyle intervention, medication intervention, eating behavior or exercise behavior, to reduce the probability that these patients or participants would get dementia or Alzheimer at a certain moment in time. Of course, this was only a 4-year project, so not so many participants were diagnosed with Alzheimer, but still we also used AI modeling, as we have seen before with the digital twins, to use predictive models to see how this intervention would also influence the time horizon in 5, 10, and 20 years after the project would finish. We also used AI to have better insights about personalization. So we found out that using digital cognitive biomarkers, complementing this with biological biomarkers to try to have a better profile of the patients, in this case participants, try to see how we can use the intervention in a better way to inform them, but also the healthcare professional, to take the right treatment for them to be more successful. We actually do the same in thrombus. It's more about thrombosis, but still it's also with elder patients that we try to use AI modeling to see which of these digital tools, which of these interventions are most effectively for which persons, using most information as possible. I know that personalized medicine or personalized intervention or personalized healthcare is a very sexy topic, but now in a time of AI, but also in a time we are collecting more and more data, I think this is the moment that we should discuss, okay, but what now? How can we use it? How can we analyze the information? And how can we subsequently feed the models in order to make sure that we have a good understanding what the patient or the participants need to improve the healthcare delivery? We are also part of the Sunrise Consortium. I know that many people in this room are working for SURF, so they are, of course, the coordinator there. It's mostly about adolescents and youth, but still it's very important because we use all the information that we're collecting there, trying to tailor and recommend different solutions for different kind of youth. We do this in different countries, but also in different stages of adolescence, trying to see how we can use the data that we're collecting in a more effective way to prevent them from vaping, smoking, but also drinking alcohol and also having a healthier lifestyle. I think that AI is very useful to monitor and give more precise feedback to the user because you can collect all the information, combine it with historical data sets, and then you can come up with more effective solutions for personalized interventions at a certain moment of time. What we also believe, and as you maybe know, in the Netherlands we just had an election. We know that there are different coalitions. So we also what we try to do in the data sets that we have, we try to combine all the different data sets with the policy environment. So we know that if there is a change of the cabinet, of the government, that this will also reinforce a different reimbursement system, but also will affect what kind of interventions are being part of the reimbursement schema of the patients. So we try to envision also this natural environment, which is part of the quintuple helix, trying to showcase that this is also very important to understand the AI uptake and also how you should try to implement AI. I think that the end goal of using AI is to support the expert, not to replace the expert, but to support the expert. The expert can be the patient. It can also be the healthcare professional. It can also be the policymaker. So we should better understand how the different stakeholders in the full ecosystem make use of AI and how we can try to support these stakeholders in the full pipeline from understanding to implementation to an analysis of these AI tools to make sure that we have the correct uptake, adoption, but also longitudinal implementation. Because otherwise people will use it for a few weeks, they will stop using it, and it's a waste of resources. We also part of Beamer, also together with SURF, we are there doing data analytics, trying to profile different patients in different disease areas, trying to see how we can improve, first of all, our behavioral understanding of reasons why people do not adhere to the treatment. This is not only medication, but also lifestyle treatment. And we try to see if we can use AI to make a better algorithm to cluster and segment patients in order to provide them with a more tailored recommendation from the healthcare professional or from a digital app or whatever is needed. So some patients, they need more information, but other patients, they need a reminder, and other patients, they need emotional support. So what kind of different intervention can we plan in order to showcase that we can increase adherence? Because in clinical trials, it's mostly between 90 and 100%, but in real life, it's between 20 and 40%, which is, of course, a waste of very expensive resources. I think also something that we are now building with several companies in the Netherlands and also in Belgium, but also in 5 new IHIs that we will start in January, is change management. We definitely believe that we are now on the verge of implementing AI. We see that some people, they are really overconfident, other people, they're a little bit anxious. We try to see how we, and then I consider this group as an expert group, how we can make the change that if we find something really effective that can help data analytics, but also predictive modeling, but also the treatment itself, how can we make sure that the people that need to implement it, because I'm not a doctor, I will not never be a doctor, how can we make sure that they can implement this in such a way that they feel safe, they feel secure, they have trust in implementing it, and that they are also implementing in such a way that is ethical and legal and also trustworthy. So all these things we need to think about, because now we are in a lot of European innovation projects. We need to make sure that we find a way how we can change the people using it in order to uptake effective solutions. Therefore, we need, of course, good communication strategies. We need to have this proactive stakeholder engagement. We are doing this in the Netherlands with the coalition of all top clinical hospitals in the Netherlands. We also have collaboration with the Nordic, so with Scandinavian countries that want to see how they can implement it. But of course, we need to have an overarching approach in Europe to ensure that we can use it. Another thing that we can also think about is capacity building. So how can we include training models or leadership coaching and assess the readiness to implement it in order to make sure that we are going to do this. Also because it's part of the European health data spaces and the AI literacy that will be obligatory in the near future. So these things we need to think about now. So another thing that we are building on is this value-based healthcare approach. We see that, especially in the Netherlands, we have been discussing with the Ministry of Health, that they want to refocus the healthcare provision and focus more on value. And value, of course, is not only clinical care, but also patient care. So we need to better understand how to use data coming from patients. We actually had a very good, successful session with the IHI as well, with a large number of IHI projects, trying to understand how to use real-world evidence, real-world data, focusing on the patient need. So if we collect POMs, PREMs, and PPIs, how are we going to use this information in order to have this value-based healthcare model approach? So this was it from my side. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for being here. I really liked the previous presentations, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next presentation and to the questions at the end.
Very much, Frans. Really an excellent presentation, and some topics that you analyzed are really very multidisciplinary, not only touching technical points, but policy considerations. We would like to have the opportunity to discuss further all these issues after the conclusion of this webinar. So now I welcome also Adrian. I'm giving the floor to Adrian Quesada Rodriguez. He is an associate reporter and a senior manager and a lead researcher and in technology law and Mantata International. So Adrian, welcome. Thank you very much. The floor is yours. We do not hear you, Adrian. Just seeing your...
Yes, can you hear me now?
Your presentation.
Thank you.
Now, yes, it's perfect.
So,
thank you very much.
So thank you very much. Indeed, I was called upon to discuss some of the legal perspectives surrounding the use of Gen AI applications in healthcare, these topics that we're addressing. And my presentation is going to be evidently more synthetic than it should be, considering the broad range of topics that are being discussed and the many avenues from which we can address those topics. In particularly, I wanted to focus really quickly. Let me see if there we go. On some of the discussions that have been taken care, that have been presented so far. So I completely agree that Gen AI is transforming healthcare and particularly the care of elders through, for the examples that we've seen, so virtual assistants and digital twins, those are going to be major points. And the introduction of Gen AI to this context is challenging from the perspective of how to balance quality of life and the significant advances and advantages that this can bring to the various stakeholders. So from the patient's perspective, from the healthcare provider's perspective, while still ensuring both a responsible management of the risks that are brought in, which is the typical thing that are normally being discussed nowadays, like risks is kind of like the center stage from the various point of view, but then also the perspectives about how can this set of solutions be protected, be implemented in a way that is responsible, that is sustainable, that is leads to a valuable European ecosystem. Again, considering the discussions that have taken recently with regards to the positioning of Europe as a potential provider of AI solutions and the comparisons that are arising with regards to other legal systems such as the US and China, where the major advances are being taken right now, when there's a big discussion with regards to overregulation and these kinds of areas. So in this context, I'm going to be discussing some elements about IPR, some elements about the typical risk-based approach, and then also some discussions surrounding how these systems can implement and can have implications for legally vulnerable populations. So the main point here I wanted to raise is that indeed, from the perspective of the patient, we have to be careful, particularly when addressing vulnerable populations, to ensure that the implications of the implementation of AI systems are well defined, well taken care of. So the analytical framework should be relatively clear in this context. We are based on a specific legal and ethical vulnerability of the end user patients and older adults, which basically serves as a legal risk multiplier. This is not a monolithic group of population. We have different types of capacities within the patients, but the reality is that they can be vulnerable to digital exclusion. You have potential health disparities that could be incentivized by algorithmic decisions. And then, of course, there's heightened privacy risks. I guess all of us have had the discussions with our parents, with our grandparents about the difficulties that arise from identifying AI and making this kind of disconnection or identification and trust generation about the new developments in AI. So that is one very important element to consider. And within this context, the increased implementation of AI solutions should be very carefully examined, because the traditional approach to consent might not be as valid anymore. And similarly, we have to discuss whether autonomy perspectives also change with an increased interaction or implementation of AI solutions. So this basically can be synthesized as an increased line or range of duties for the developers of these solutions, and for the institutions that are going to be implementing these solutions as well. And this, of course, has a heightened number of standards that are basically applicable. The legal and regulatory burden of the adoption of AI solutions basically moves further to the implementer and to the provider as they are further adopted or developed. So there are indeed three main elements that I wanted to discuss. There's four principles. So basically, we have one element to consider, that from the perspective of the development and value chain and implementation value chain as well for these systems, regulatory perspectives are, let's say, the regulatory systems apply in a little bit of a different manner. So within the data input perspective, so what kind of data we are going to be using to develop these systems, we have a potential conflict between copyright and the protection of the data that serves to generate this systems, because like within generative AI in particular, you have to generate or train your models with a large number of data sets. Some of these, particularly within the health domain, cannot be taken out from publicly available sources because you need to have authoritative data. And then within that authoritative corpus of data, you might have discussions surrounding the copyrights that are, for example, within the medical textbooks and guidance that are fundamental to the specification of these systems and these models. Then we have the topics regarding the personal data. That is the second layer of how these systems can be developed and trained. And within this context, one element to consider is the following. So you have the issues on the copyright and access to data on the input side, but then also on the output side, most copyright and, let's say, IPR related approaches do not recognize necessarily the viability of protecting the outputs or the recommendations of an AI system as a copyrightable form of knowledge or yeah, it's a copyrightable, protectable resource under traditional copyrights. And this has an interesting perspective because from the developers and the implementers' point of view, evidently the implementation of these systems is, let's say, bolstered by the idea of maximizing profits, maximizing the care that can be provided, but then there's a need to go from the theoretical value onto the practical potential value of implementation. And then you are finding more and more situations where the developers of these models that realize that their outputs are not necessarily theirs, and this is particularly relevant for the discussions surrounding the digital twins, and the implementers as well. They are kind of having to turn more and more towards trade secrets and ways to limit the access to the potential outputs, which generates or bolsters the black box paradox that is intrinsically associated with Gen AI, basically within the scope of Gen AI. And now there's been a lot of efforts towards generating explainable Gen AI, but there's this perspective of, okay, you have an input, you have a black box that basically processes the data in a way that cannot be necessarily transparent. And then we have an output that is generated, but again, it's not necessarily protected. So within the context of the regulatory framework that we have in Europe, this black box potential clashes with the regulations, particularly the AI Act regulations, with regards to the transparency and explainability of the models towards the end user. I see that there are some people leaving, so sorry for that. I hope that I'm not taking too long. So basically, I'm going to very quickly go through these pillars. We have the GDPR that protects personal data and that specifies a number of requirements. Oops, sorry for that. Requirements for the lawful processing of personal data. Particularly, we have dispositions with regards to the processing of special categories of data, which basically prohibits by default the health data processing. But we have this balanced by the new European Health Data Space regulation framework that I'm going to really quickly mention later on. Then we have efforts on the output side of the black box to address and to better define what are the liabilities that could be associated with these set of products and outputs. Okay. There we go. On the other side, we have the EU Artificial Intelligence Act, which basically has been widely discussed right now. We have the well-known risk classification by the AI Act. It basically classifies AI systems into 4 tiers: unacceptable risk, that is generally banned; high risk, that is generally associated with the processing of sensitive data; limited risks; and minimal and no risks. Within these limited risks systems, they are generally subject to transparency obligations. But then for our case, particularly high-risk systems are subject to very strict obligations that should be implemented before they can be put into the market. And these include, amongst other things, the risk assessment and mitigation of the systems, the use of high-quality data sets for training that should minimize the risks of discriminatory outcomes. And then you see in here the point that I was making before. How can you get access to high-quality data sets when you have potential conflicts with copyright law, and you have to consider potential of fair use or specific access. And then on the other side, you have the topics of how personal data can be accessed, and that's what the European Health Data Space is trying to facilitate. And you have other requirements that are of really high relevance in here. I think that the main element to consider is that the EU AI Act establishes for the provider or the developer a set of obligations that are of high relevance. The first one is data and data governance in Article 10 of the regulation, that basically requires that the data that is used should be relevant, sufficiently representative, that is free of errors and complete as much as possible. And then you have the transparency and provision of information to the deployers. So it requires the creation of legal technical instruction manuals from the providers of the solutions to the deployers, which in this case would be the hospital or the healthcare providers, that should be concise, complete, correct, and clear. And these documents are legal instruments that disclose the system's intended purpose, the capabilities and limitations, and any known foreseeable circumstances that might lead to risks to the health and safety or fundamental rights. So basically, how can the user of the system prevent risks associated to this? And then on the deployer's point of view, the AI Act also has a set of requirements, particularly called 26, that is the use of these models according to the instructions, and then having competent human oversights over the systems so that there's basically a mandated AI literacy training, basically for healthcare providers. And then there's several other requirements such as impact assessment and so on and so forth. So basically, the main point here is that the AI Act sets a set of really stringent requirements and sets a set of liability potentially causing elements, in the sense that if you don't follow the right or the AI Act requirements to better document your information and to implement the process that it requires, you might be causing or setting yourself up for potential liabilities later on down the road. I will try to advance a little bit quicker. So with regards to the European Health Data Space, as I was mentioning before, you have the enabler for the generation or the access to these high quality data sets. So the health data sets, the EHDS, it generates a common framework for the primary use of data, and particularly for a use case, the secondary use of health data. And this framework seeks to unleash the full potential of health data within the European single market to provide companies and researchers with access to large amount of high quality health data, and to basically enable the development of the models that we are seeking to implement. And it does this through a set of administrative and governance processes. Most relevantly, it establishes the health data access bodies, which are basically bodies established by each state, that could be one or many, that would be the gatekeepers to the secondary use of health data of individuals. It requires the use of secure processing environments, which are basically highly secure iterations of digital environments where the researchers can access the data remotely without getting copies of the data itself. And then, yeah, that's the key main elements. The EHDS and the AI Act in this context seek to work in tandem. The AI Act acts as the demand signal. It basically establishes the rule for implementing, let's say, what are the requirements for high risk AI use, and then the EHDS enables the development of these potentially high risk solutions in a way that is controlled and in a way that is responsible. So within this context of regulatory frameworks, and I hope that I'm not going to or confusing people, there's quite a large number of regulations. We have also the Product Liability Directive, which was recently updated in 2024, and that it becomes basically the main weapon a patient could use against the providers or the implementers in case there are situations that could affect them, their health, with regards to the use the use of an AI system. So basically, it has been modified to basically include software, AI systems, and digital services, and then it has been modified to introduce potential, basically what falls under a defect. There was also a liability AI liability directive that was proposed. However, this was finally withdrawn due to the process being stalled, and there were several discussions on whether there could be a risk of over regulation associated with that. The main point here is that this directive sought to very clearly define in a common way across all of the EU countries what would be the necessary tools that could be given to the patients in this case, so that they could bring forth and make their rights be respected. Particularly, it required the disclosure of evidence and presumption of causality rebuttal. So basically, it basically established what would be the common elements that most national dispositions would have to implement. So while it was rebutted finally or withdrawn, this directive requested or required a common approach. And I see that in the context of national law, there's a high likelihood that this liability approach regulation of AI-related liability is going to continue in the future. Going back to the general points, let's see, sorry. Within the implementation of AI systems, we have a potential failure point that is brought forward by the use or increased use of AI in healthcare, which has to do with the model of informed consent. As of now, many efforts towards implementing informed consent in either research or practical environment is a one-time checkbox consent that is provided to the patients. And the implementation of these models that are highly adaptive, evolving, and that could also be linked to potential digital copies of the patient, that also has to or calls to the change of these consent process, in the sense that we are going to have to move to systems that are going to be more dynamic, that require dynamic ongoing consent with regular reaffirmation of permissions, with plain language dashboards, and with revocable users and caregiver control, so that the consent process itself, in a easy to use plain language, easy to visualize approach, is respected. It becomes an intrinsic part of the systems, and it also becomes an enabler for the constant provision of the data to the systems itself. So basically, the provision of the personal data that is necessary for the system to work has to be tied with this permanent consent validation process, and particularly with regards to very vulnerable types of users. Sorry for my English today. So going back to some of the topics that are being discussed in this webinar, with regards to digital twins, there are several interactions in here that are really interesting to consider. There's the topic of how the digital twins are owned from, and what are the allocations of responsibilities and of rights that are given to the digital twins, because the digital twins could be, for example, a complete representation of a patient or a patient's organs, for example, and a view of the future or potential features of this. And this is fed necessarily with personal data. So the personal data under the GDPR is owned by the person. But then, if the digital twin is an AI model, basically this kind of black box, and the outputs are, or the predictions are outputs that are not copyrightable, then we have to consider whether the ownership of these potential features and predictions is set to the patient, to the provider, or to developers. In general, the likely approach that is going to be followed, and this is my prediction again, is that we're going to have a situation where, while the patient's data that is being collected constantly remains owned by the patient, the model itself is evidently going to be owned by the developer that can generate new versions. But then the, let's say, tailored version of this model that is locally deployed will be most likely allocated to the provider. And then there will be several contractual dispositions that will give ownership of this set of predictions to the provider from the patient. So this has, again, a set of potential implications from the perspective of not only the ownership and the potential benefits associated with the use of these models, but then also from the liability point of view, in the sense that this distributed ownership perspective makes it more difficult for the patient to understand where a potential failure point could have happened, who was the entity that, or which was the entity that is responsible, and then who can he request compensation from in the future, and particularly considering the fact that these are
Andrian, sorry for interrupting, but we have exceeded the time. If you can conclude, please.
I'm really sorry. Okay, so basically we have a set of unresolved legal frontiers. That's my main point here. There are issues with regards to how the patient's rights are to be withheld or sustained. There are new perspectives on psychosocial harms, which was actually the slide that I was going to talk about in the context of the virtual assistants. We have the potential for the assistants to generate psychosocial harm that is not necessarily perceived or properly framed right now. And there's some risk for infantilization, confusion, and so on and so forth. And then we have to address to which extent this classification and the regulatory framework that is set by the AI Act and by the European legal framework can adapt to the ever-evolving pace of AI models. So basically, we want to understand what is the new duty of care that the researchers have to uphold, and then how can we build trust within this evolving legal framework where you don't necessarily have this transparency and clarity about where the legal risks apply. The most likely approach is going to be, as usual, a constant collaboration between lawyers, ethicists, engineers, and older adults, and then a very strong ethical governance framework that should be implemented across the board. In general, Gen AI implementation redefines consent, liability, and dignity. And then, while we have a good regulation in the form of the regulations, we need to have trustworthiness driven through ethical implementation. So I think that that's basically the main point. I had several recommendations, but I can pass them onwards to the assistants of the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Really an excellent presentation. Unfortunately, we have limited time. Also, I would like to thank all of you. We have one last but not least recording speech from, yes, Silvia?
Thank you, Sophia. Sorry to interrupt you. Yes, but as we are very late with the time. Yes, as it is a recording presentation. Yes, I suggest uploading it to our CCF area. Yes, for the members of the CCF. Also, it is a good opportunity to invite those who are not members of the CCF of the Comfort Edge Community Forum to join us. And we suggest uploading the video, yes, to the CCF area, so people can watch it, yes, because it is a 10 minutes video, and we are not fine with the time. I don't know if you agree. Yes, we can do that.
Yes, sure. Yes, we can upload it, and participants and all stakeholders can view this video, visualize this video. 5 minutes just for questions or observations in order to conclude this meeting then.
Perfect. Thank you, Sophia.
Okay, because if you do not have, I can make a small conclusion. We all, it is an agreement an agreement has been derived according to the conversational AI agents, virtual assistants, chatbots, whatever term we are using, that they offer a number of benefits for older adults' daily life. Including emotional support, facilitator of daily activities, and fostering social connectivity. However, the over-reliance on AI may limit face-to-face interactions. We have to pay attention to ethics and legal perspectives of AI use, as it is mentioned by different experts. It is emergent need to train all stakeholders to some considerations and mitigation measures according to how AI will be integrated in geriatric care, and see which mitigation measures will be implemented according to the issues such as confidentiality, privacy, security, and liability. So I would like to thank all of you. If there is no question, I would like to thank a lot all of the participants. Is there a question or an observation to conclude the meeting? So thank you very much. Unfortunately, the time is limited, and so we will extend. Thank you all. Thank you, George. We will extend this very excited and challenging presentation in the forthcoming meeting that we have scheduled. And is focusing on ethics mainly and AI use. So thank you again. Have a nice day, and we will be in contact. We will share all the relevant material with all of you. And I would like to congratulate you for all these very nice and interesting presentations. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Have a nice
Sophia.
day.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the presenters too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.